Hello everyone, and welcome! Today we're taking a quick break from the traveling torches to learn about the newcomers who rescued Hailstorm, the Star Stringers. Though this is technically a standalone backstory type event, it does lead directly into the main plot of the current D&D story going on right now. Just as a reminder, in case it's been a bit since you watched the original D&D video, Moon is a cleric and Kinkajou is a bard. Everything in Moonwatcher's life was perfect. When she was 2, she had her first vision. A rare Nightwing power, something that set her apart from her tribe mates as someone blessed. Visionaries served the Queen, helping to protect the future of the tribe and the kingdom. Her father was proud of her, and her mother knew Moonwatcher would grow up living a life of luxury. Soon after her powers were discovered, Moonwatcher was sent to live at the Night Temple with the visionaries who lived and worked there. She began training as a cleric, learning about the moon goddess who'd blessed their tribe above all others, who bestowed their powers of prophecy and mind reading on them. Over the years, Moonwatcher became something of a favorite around the temple. She was younger than many of the other visionaries, and a natural prodigy. Though nobody could claim frequent visions, the real mark of a good visionary cleric was their ability to interpret their dreams. So Moonwatcher diligently studied old prophecies, works of literature, lore of their goddess, and the tribe's history. While other dragonettes trained with weapons or learned spellcraft, Moonwatcher was sequestered in the cool, quiet temple, honing her skills of interpretation. When the Oracle, the Nightwing cleric who led the other visionaries, took Moonwatcher on as her apprentice, Moonwatcher was the youngest to ever gain that honor. Oracles led the visionaries their entire lives, until they selected one single apprentice to train. An apprentice who would, eventually, take their place. And so, Moonwatcher's life was, well, perfect. That is, until she had a vision she couldn't reconcile with. It was the most vivid of any of Moonwatcher's visions ever. There was a caravan of travelers bedded down for the night along the southern road. Most of the dragons appeared to be rainwings, though Moonwatcher could see a few sandwings and mudwings as well. They were gathered in little bunches around fires, sharing food, playing instruments, laughing and singing together. The scene was one of warm companionship and easy relaxation after a long day. Moonwatcher felt as if she could step out onto the springy grass and walk amidst the travelers. The vision was almost tangible, in a way none of her previous glimpses had been. Then the night sky descended upon the travelers. Moonwatcher stared in horrified stillness as the Nightwings in her vision swooped down upon the unsuspecting travelers. Without provocation, they attacked, weapons flashing in the firelight and claws slashing viciously. As she watched, they killed over a dozen of the travelers, leaving only 6 or so alive, cowed and trembling. Who were these dragons? They must be exiled Nightwings turned bandits. Perhaps Moonwatcher was receiving this vision so she could warn the Queen that rogue Nightwings were marauding. Or would be marauding whenever this tragedy would occur. But Moonwatcher was proven wrong when she recognized one of the dragons in the group of attackers. Marosir, her own father. Marosir, who had left the kingdom 3 nights ago, on a mission for the Queen. Moonwatcher didn't understand what she was seeing, but the scene before her played on in spite of her. "Where is the scroll?" Marosir was saying, growling at an old, thin rainwing held between 2 Nightwing soldiers. "Scroll?" the old dragon stammered. We have many scrolls here. Plays, poetry, anything you—" "No," Marosir snarled. "The scroll. Darkstalker's scroll." Moonwatcher recognized the name Darkstalker. She'd read of him in ancient crumbling histories deep in the library archives. But she'd never heard of this scroll. Was it a diary? A historical account? Why would the Rainwings have it? I don't know of anything called—" Marosir lashed out, slashing at the old Rainwing snout with his claws. Moonwatcher gasped as she watched her father. "Don't lie to me, you lizard," her father hissed. "We know it was stolen from the Icewings centuries ago. I've spent my entire life hunting for that relic, and I know it has come to the Rainwings, scattered though you are. And I know, Grandeur, that you are the descendant of one of the original Rainwing queens. So you will tell me what I want to know. You will tell me where the scroll is hidden." The old Rainwing, Grandeur, stared in stricken silence for a moment. Then, despite her obvious fear, she pulled her wings back bravely. "I don't know of any such scroll," she said primly. "Nor do any of my dragons." Marosier glared at her in silence for a long, terrible moment. "Take them," he said finally, turning to the Nightwing next to him. "It appears they will need convincing." And then, Moonwatcher awoke. For the first time in her life, Moonwatcher kept her vision to herself. It felt wrong to delay in telling the Oracle what she'd seen. Visionary clerics had strict rules. All visions were brought directly to the Oracle before being prepared for translation. But this vision, it was different. It wasn't the smoke and mirrors of a normal vision. It didn't need to be interpreted and written down for distribution. Moonwatcher understood clearly what she'd seen. What she didn't understand was why. Marosier was still gone. He was on a mission given to him by the Queen. Whatever Moonwatcher did next, she had to be careful. She had read once about a type of vision that was unusual. In the legend, it had been called a forth-telling, a vision not of the future, but of something happening at the very moment of the dreaming. The old myths claim that forth-tellings were known by their clarity. They were as obvious and clear to the visionary as anything they might see with their own two eyes. Forth-telling was a debated topic in the temple. Most believed it to be only a myth. Of the few who claimed it was real, all agreed it wasn't a technique that could be learned. It was a gift from the moon goddess herself. Moonwatcher didn't know whether the Oracle believed in forth-telling or not, but she couldn't risk asking. And she'd never had a vision like that before in her life. Moonwatcher didn't know when her father was due home. She rarely saw her parents, since she lived and trained at the temple. Her mother visited with news when she was permitted to. Marosier rarely came, as he was usually busy serving the Queen. Now, Moonwatcher wondered what, exactly, kind of service he provided. So she spent her days researching this scroll her father was apparently searching for. Moonwatcher found very little information. She remembered Darkstalker's name, and found a few mentions of him in the oldest of their literature. He'd been a magic user, and evidently a powerful one. But she couldn't seem to find much about him, just that he was involved in some great tragedy of the past, part of the original war between the Icewings and the Nightwings. That war had continued, on and off, for centuries. Few battles had been fought in Moonwatcher's lifetime, but whatever had started the feud must have been terrible. And this Darkstalker appeared to be wrapped up in the middle of it, but Moonwatcher couldn't discover the connection. She did find out, however, that he was a visionary. Or he should have trained to be one. He'd rejected Nightwing teachings for a different kind of magic. That was something else a lot of the histories glossed over. But Moonwatcher thought the important part was the Nightwing magic. Because if she was looking for a scroll, well, she knew what that meant. Darkstalker must have had a vision, she thought to herself as she tried to puzzle it out. That's what's written on the scroll, a vision that reached centuries into the future. It wasn't impossible for that to happen, but it was something only the most powerful of visionary clerics, like Clearsight, were capable of. Darkstalker must have been much more blessed than the histories give him credit for, she thought. He must have written a prophecy on this scroll, something important to the tribe, and the Icewings must have stolen it, which is why they went to war. And that's why the Queen wants my father to find it. Whatever this prophecy is, we must need to know direly. It had taken her a few days to puzzle all this out, but it made sense. If a seer as powerful as this Darkstalker must have been had left that kind of relic for the tribe, and then it had been stolen, well, of course Marosier would be working to recover it. The Oracle might even know about his mission already. She might have had the visions that directed him to find those traveling Rainwings. And yet, even though the story made sense, they'd killed over a dozen innocent travelers. Sandwings, mudwings, rainwings. There'd been no reason to kill them all. The Nightwings had clearly been the superior fighters. So even though Moonwatcher thought she understood what was happening, she decided to keep it to herself a little longer. She wanted to investigate. She needed more knowledge. And she'd found everything she possibly could in the library. Which meant it was time to find another source of information. Moonwatcher needed to talk to those Rainwings. And that meant she needed to find them. Marasier arrived back in the Kingdom of Night 6 days after Moonwatcher's fourth telling. He said nothing to her of what he'd been doing when she made an unexpected visit home. Ever since she'd gone to live at the temple with the other visionaries, Moonwatcher had spent much of her time there studying. She hadn't explored their kingdom nearly as much as other dragonettes her age. Moonwatcher couldn't even begin to guess where to look for the Rainwings who'd survived Marasier's attack. They probably wouldn't be in the dungeons where anyone could come across them. But she overheard Fatespeaker, a dragonette a year older than her who worked around the temple, whispering about hearing screams one night when she was flying through the valley near the base of the Nightwing City. Fatespeaker was convinced she would discover her yet unrealized visionary powers, and could be at times unreliable, but her most consistent trait was her nosiness. Moonwatcher determined to sneak away from the temple and investigate the valley at her first opportunity. She'd thought Marasier had taken the Rainwings somewhere secluded so nobody would run into them unexpectedly. Clearly this hunt for the prophecy scroll was some kind of secret. He must have been researching, trying to find out who'd stolen the relic. Perhaps this grandeur really didn't know what he'd been talking about. If Marasier had spent years tracking it down, he must have been wrong before. Moonwatcher had expected to see unhappy Rainwings in cells, trapped away from the sunlight perhaps, or kept separated from one another. She'd expected rooms of secret scrolls and histories, maps pinned with locations where the prophecy scroll had been kept by other dragons Marasier must not have caught. That was not what Moonwatcher found in the caves beneath the valley. She came during the night to blend in. Moonwatcher had very little experience with stealth. But as it turned out, nobody in the tunnels was really aware enough to notice her creeping through. The first Rainwing Moonwatcher found looked nearly unrecognizable. The poor thing was a dull, gray-blue color, scales scuffed and dry. He was bound in metal chains, anchored sturdily into the wall of the cave he was held in. The Rainwing couldn't have enough room to move more than a step or two in any direction. His snout was bound tightly shut, and he'd been blindfolded. He drooped unhappily against the stone, and red slash marks stood out as gaping swaths of color against his pale scales. She found 2 more Rainwings in similarly horrifying condition. The tunnels were a maze-like warren of unmarked passages, and Moonwatcher might worry about getting lost if she didn't have so much more to worry about. Each Rainwing was pinned to the wall alone at the end of a tunnel. None of the 3 she'd seen so far seemed to be responsive or aware of her. Moonwatcher hadn't even seen any guards. Evidently, Marasier wasn't worried about the poor creatures trying to escape. She did find a few rooms with maps and scrolls, but there wasn't time to properly go through the records, and Moonwatcher grew increasingly sure she didn't want to get caught down here. This went beyond searching for a prophecy. Her father was torturing these Rainwings. Moonwatcher found Grandeur, the old dragon seemingly barely alive. She investigated the chains, wondering if she could help the old dragon escape, but all were locked with the same strange mechanism that Moonwatcher had never seen before, and she'd seen no keys during her exploration. She tried to wake Grandeur to ask her questions, but the Rainwing seemed to be unconscious. She wasn't going to get any answers tonight. At least, nothing she'd like. Moonwatcher had to get out of here. It was harder than she liked to retrace her steps to the entrance. It was dark in the tunnels, lit only by infrequent lanterns. Everything seemed to twist back on itself, branching into new passages, running into dead ends, leading to locked doors or gaping black pits. Moonwatcher wasn't lost, necessarily, but she was beginning to wonder if she'd come through this cave or that cave, and if she'd seen that stalactite before. Then she finally found another dragon who was awake, a 5th Rainwing. This was a dragonette, one who looked about Moonwatcher's age. Like the others, her scales were chipped and dull, but little starbursts of green flickered around her shoulders when she caught sight of Moonwatcher. All the others had been blindfolded. This Rainwing had scrapes around her eyes, and Moonwatcher realized she must have used the stone around her to rub the cloth away from her eyes. She wore no muzzle. "Who are you?" the Rainwing demanded suspiciously. Her voice was high and scared, filled with suspicion. Like the others, she was tethered to the wall, though she tried to step back away from Moonwatcher when she came closer. "My name is Moonwatcher," she said, holding up her talons non-threateningly. "I won't hurt you." The Rainwing hissed wordlessly at her, glaring hotly. "You're all the same," she snapped angrily. "You're all liars." Moonwatcher cringed. "How long have you been here?" she asked, though it hadn't been the question she'd meant to ask. The Rainwing Dragonette paused to stare at her. "That's a stupid question," she said finally. Moonwatcher swallowed, staring at the stranger. "I'm not supposed to be here," she admitted softly, glancing over her shoulder. "I don't know how long you've been down here." "I don't know how this helps you," the Rainwing spat, "but I'm not playing this dumb game. Go away." "I need to know about the prophecy scroll," Moonwatcher tried. "The one Grandeur knows about. If you help us find it, Marcyr won't have a reason to hurt you anymore." The Rainwing snarled at her, tiny wings flaring. "He hurts us for fun," she growled furiously. "He'd do it anyway. He's been hunting Rainwings for years." Years, Moonwatcher thought, a sick feeling growing in her. "We don't have a prophecy scroll," the Dragonette added. "You don't even know what you're looking for. And if this is how Nightwings treat other dragons, we'll make sure you never find it." Moonwatcher stared unhappily at the little Rainwing. The sick, pale green color was leaching from her shoulders down to her wingtips and talons, crawling down her spine. She didn't know what it meant, but the Rainwing seemed scared. Nobody had ever been scared of Moonwatcher before. "I'll be back," she promised softly, backing up. "I won't leave you here." The Rainwing huffed noisily. "Of course you'll be back," she muttered. "One of you always is." Moonwatcher turned and fled. She couldn't stand to look at the chained Rainwing Dragonette a moment longer. She had to get out of here. Marcyr, was he really hurting these dragons? The Rainwing Dragonette said he'd been hunting them for years. He said he'd been searching for the prophecy scroll for a long time. Had he been hurting dragons like this the entire time? Moonwatcher was so caught up in her thoughts that she almost walked straight into one of the dark pits she'd seen in her earlier explorations. She caught herself with a little shriek of surprise, backpedaling wildly. The tunnels were too close for her to fly through, so she'd been on foot the entire time. She'd have to double back again. This tunnel disappeared entirely into a gaping chasm. It smelled terrible in here, like death. Moonwatcher swallowed dryly. Then she forced herself to look over the edge into the pit. Bones. The chasm was filled with dragon bones, heaped upon each other. She could see bits of old chain rusting, scraps of leather, and the glint of scales. And there, the sixth Rainwing, the only one she hadn't found. She was dead already. Moonwatcher gasped in horror, turned, and fled. Everything was a blur for a while. Moonwatcher found a way to escape the tunnels. She managed to slip away unseen. Marcyr had no guards. She hadn't even seen her father back there. She'd flown back to the temple, tears streaming down her snout, trying to decide what to do. Who to tell? Who could she tell? The Queen had to know about this. She was the one sending Marcyr out from the kingdom on these missions over the years. And if the Queen knew, the Oracle must know too. So Moonwatcher couldn't go to either of them. Did Secret Keeper know? Was her mother helping her father? No, Moonwatcher couldn't risk going to her. So who could help the Rainwings? Moonwatcher was just a dragonette. She was a visionary cleric, apprenticed to the Oracle. She wasn't strong or trained with weapons, and she didn't know how to cast spells or use magic. How could she help the Rainwings escape? And if she did, what would happen to her? How would the Nightwings find the prophecy scroll? And why did that Rainwing tell me I didn't know what I was looking for? Who could help her? Moonwatcher found herself at the peak of the temple, staring up at the three moons. 2 were full tonight, the third a slim crescent hanging in the sky. The pinnacle of the temple was a small roofless observatory, open to the night sky. This is where the oracle composed her prophecies and prayed to their goddess. Tonight it was empty. Moonwatcher stared up at the moons helplessly. What could she do? And then, suddenly, she wasn't so alone. Moonwatcher jumped when the dragon appeared beside her, then stared in wonder. She was a nightwing. She had all the same features as Moonwatcher. Straight, sharp horns, a tiny teardrop scale behind her eye, little spines running down her neck. But she was unlike any nightwing Moonwatcher had ever seen. She was pure white from nose to tail. Her eyes were a pale, glowing blue. Her wings sparkled with stars even though they were white as snow. Or white as the moon, Moonwatcher realized. She stood frozen, staring at the white nightwing who'd appeared beside her. "Little Moonwatcher," the dragon said. Only her mouth didn't move, and Moonwatcher heard the melodious words in her mind, clear as a bell. "My little watcher, you are distressed." I, Moonwatcher stammered helplessly. "Do not be afraid," the moon goddess consoled. "You are my cleric. I have blessed you before." The fourth telling, Moonwatcher realized. The legend said it came only as a gift from the goddess herself. "You have seen the prisoners?" the white nightwing asked, blue eyes heavy with sadness. Moonwatcher nodded slowly. She swallowed nervously. "My father, Marosir, he's torturing them," she said sadly. "He's killed dragons." "He is searching for Darkstalker's scroll," she said, and Moonwatcher suddenly had an image of it in her mind. An old scroll, but not crumbling or destroyed, with a leather case. It appeared in her mind, and suddenly she understood it wasn't a prophecy scroll. "It's a talisman?" she asked, looking up at the goddess. "The most powerful relic ever created," she confirmed. "It has been lost for some time, and it should stay lost. But Marosir grows ever closer, and I see others who search for it as well. In the wrong claws, this relic could be the death of hundreds. To find it, your father will kill all the Rainwings he now holds captive." Moonwatcher stared in growing horror. "How do I save the Rainwings?" she asked softly. "Nobody can be allowed to keep the relic," the moon goddess intoned. "You must find it and bring it to me. If it is destroyed, all will be lost." "What, me?" Moonwatcher cried. "How? I'm just a dragonette. I've never even left the kingdom before." "I will give you the power to save the Rainwings," the goddess promised soothingly. "If you promise to find the talisman and return it to me, so I can destroy it without bringing destruction down on all of us." Moonwatcher swallowed, mind racing. Could she really do this? Could she save the Rainwings and find this scroll before her father, somehow? "I'll do it," she said finally, nervously flicking her wings. "If you help me save the Rainwings, I'll find Darkstalker's scroll and I'll bring it to you." "Good, my little watcher," the goddess smiled approvingly. "I had hoped you would agree." The goddess held out a talon, suddenly holding a necklace with a small silver crescent moon dangling from it. Moonwatcher took it slowly. "This necklace is my gift to you," the goddess murmured. "With it you can walk unseen, like the moon when the sky is bright. And in your moment of need, take hold of the pendant and you will find assistance." "Thank you," Moonwatcher said slowly, looking at the necklace in her talon. It was simple but elegant. She'd never have guessed it was a talisman. She put it around her neck. "I have one final gift as well, little watcher," the goddess said. "I blessed you once when you hatched. I gave you the gift of foresight. Now I give you the second Nightwing blessing, the gift of mind reading." Moonwatcher's eyes shot wide as the white Nightwing lifted a talon to gently hold the side of her head. Suddenly there was noise, like a second set of ears in her mind, voices clamoring for attention. Moonwatcher cringed in sudden pain from the onslaught. "It will take time to grow accustomed to these new powers," the goddess said. "I will silence them for tonight so you can accomplish your goals. With the next moonrise, you will feel their effects in full. You must train them as you trained your foresight. Moonwatcher stared at her speechlessly. She was a mind reader now? She looked down at her talons in wonder. And when Moonwatcher looked up, the white Nightwing had disappeared. She was alone again on the spire, sitting in the moonlight. Moonwatcher packed a bag and returned to the tunnels with the Rainwings that very night. She'd caught a glimpse in the mirror in her chambers and been shocked to see that she couldn't see anything. By walk unseen, the Moon Goddess must have meant that Moonwatcher would be able to turn invisible. She could still see herself, but in the mirror? Nothing. So she felt more confident when she returned to the tunnels where Marosir had hidden his Rainwing prisoners. Except the tunnels weren't so empty this time. Moonwatcher found the first cave where she'd seen a Rainwing easily enough, but it was empty, the chains dangling uselessly from the wall. Somehow, Moonwatcher didn't think the chains were empty because the prisoner they'd been holding had escaped. She was trying to pick her way back to the second Rainwing when she heard the screaming. Horror grew in her as the sound continued, wending awfully through the tunnels, bouncing off the stone. Moonwatcher turned and followed the noise. It didn't take her long to find the remaining 5 Rainwings, and Marosir. Her father was in the middle of a larger cave, flanked by 4 guards. The Rainwing prisoners were chained to rings in the floor, all pale green and yellow and white in sick bursts. Moonwatcher slunk in slowly, feeling terribly exposed, but nobody turned to look at her. The goddess's talisman was working. "I said I would accept no more lies, Grandeur," Marosir hissed, looming over the old Rainwing. "This is your final chance. Where have you hidden the scroll?" "We don't have it," Grandeur hissed shakily. Marosir glared down at her, then turned and nodded to a guard. A burly Nightwing stepped forward and slashed at the throat of one of the Rainwing prisoners. Shouts erupted from the remaining prisoners as the dragon fell with a cry of pain. Marosir didn't even twitch. Moonwatcher was moving before she understood what she was doing, Talon already taking hold of the pendant on her necklace. Suddenly there was a huge, silvery scimitar in her talons. It flashed in the light, but nobody seemed to see her or her sword, as she slammed into the Nightwing guards from behind. Despite having never trained with weapons a day in her life, Moonwatcher felt somehow as if she just knew how to use the scimitar. She slashed at 2 of the guards before they even realized they were in danger. 2 more went down flailing, unable to see their assailant. Marosir was flinging his head back and forth, trying frantically to find the intruder. Moonwatcher pulled her scimitar free from the last guard. They weren't dead, but they wouldn't be hurting any more Rainwings tonight either. She knew somehow that she could turn the invisibility off with only a thought. She stood before her father and decided to let him see her. "Moonwatcher?" Marosir demanded furiously. "What are you doing?" "What are you doing?" she cried, gesturing furiously at the prisoners watching them with wide, shocked eyes. "How long have you kept this a secret?" she demanded. Marosir snarled. "Don't speak about things you don't understand," he warned. "You're just a dragonette. You couldn't possibly comprehend what's at stake here. What the Icewings stole from us. What dragons like these keep from us." "It doesn't matter," Moonwatcher shook her head. "You're done hurting other dragons." Marosir scoffed derisively. "Watch your tone, dragonette," he warned. "You are in a world of trouble as is." He wouldn't stop. Moonwatcher, she'd sort of known it deep down, but she'd wanted to believe her father would make the right choice. She willed the invisibility spell to reclaim her, and she disappeared from sight. Marosir started, eyes blowing wide again. "Moonwatcher?" he questioned. "Moonwatcher!" "You're done hurting these dragons," Moonwatcher murmured quietly, and she attacked her father with the scimitar. Despite his training and size, Marosir didn't stand a chance. Moonwatcher didn't kill him. She wouldn't become a murderer like him. But he wouldn't be following them tonight. Moonwatcher turned to the prisoners, allowing herself to turn visible once more. "Let's get out of here," she said. They stared at her in silent surprise. They don't have the keys right now, Grandeur said finally. Moonwatcher studied the scimitar in her talons. Normal weapons wouldn't cut through chain, but... She smiled softly. I think I can handle it, she said. The 4 remaining Rainwings escaped with Moonwatcher that night. They didn't say much. Moonwatcher supposed she couldn't blame them. They'd likely had their fill of Nightwings, rescuer or no. They flew in silence for a while, slowly, as everyone but Moonwatcher was in rough shape, but they eventually put the Nightwing city far behind them. After some time, the youngest Rainwing, the one Moonwatcher had spoken to earlier tonight, drifted to fly next to her, eyeing her warily. So you came back after all, she said softly. Moonwatcher looked to the side and then nodded. I couldn't let them do that to you, she said. I'm sorry I didn't make it back in time to save your friend. If she'd been only a few minutes faster, she might have 5 Rainwings with her right now instead of 4. The little Rainwing glanced away briefly, but turned back with a tiny, brave smile. I'm Kinkajou, she said. Moonwatcher. She'd already told Kinkajou her name, but as her mother always reminded her, manners cost nothing. How did you turn invisible? And the magic sword? Kinkajou asked, waving a talon. Moonwatcher looked at her quietly for a moment. I'm a cleric, she said finally. They were a gift from my patron, to save you. Her mind flitted, suddenly, to the goddess's other gift, the mind-reading powers that would come into effect in less than a day. A Nightwing patron wanted to save us, Kinkajou asked suspiciously. Well, Moonwatcher admitted. I wanted to save you. She wants me to find the scroll Marasier was looking for and bring it to her so she can destroy it. Kinkajou stared at her for a long time in silence. Destroy it? She asked finally. Not use it? No, Moonwatcher shook her head. Nobody should use it. It's too dangerous. Destroying it is dangerous too, Kinkajou pointed out. She said she could do it, Moonwatcher shrugged. I just have to find it somehow. She had no idea how she was going to do that. She hadn't gotten that far in the planning yet. The little Rainwing was staring at her. We really don't have the scroll, she said finally. A dragon named Chameleon stole it from the Icewings ages ago. We didn't even know it belonged to the Nightwings at first. But someone took it from him, and who knows where it is by now. Moonwatcher felt her heart sink at that. Finding the scroll would be much harder than she'd thought. I don't know where it is now, Kinkajou said again, slowly. But, well... She paused, eyeing Moonwatcher. I do know how to find it, she said. Really? Moonwatcher said in surprise. Kinkajou nodded. There's a talisman, she said, linked to the scroll. One of our sorcerers made it in case we ever lost it, because it's so powerful. If you can find it, why haven't you already? Moonwatcher asked curiously. As far as I know, Kinkajou said, because it's evil. We don't want anything to do with it. And anyway, up until recently, it's been in a pretty safe place. The vault of the Icewing Queen. Moonwatcher stared in surprise. But it moved not long ago, so someone else has it now, Kinkajou said. They could be planning to do anything with it. I have to find it, Moonwatcher said determinedly. My patron said it could be disastrous in the wrong talons. She gave me this necklace, she held it up, to give me the power of invisibility. The pendant turns into the sword I use to cut the chains. And... Moonwatcher paused, then continued. She said that at the next moonrise I'd become a mind reader, too. Kinkajou stared at her in wonder. You're one of the magic Nightwings? She asked. We call it a blessing, Moonwatcher said sheepishly. But yes, I suppose. They flew in silence for a moment. Our caravan was protecting the talisman tied to the scroll, Kinkajou said suddenly. But most of us are gone now. Moonwatcher looked away sadly. I'm sorry I couldn't stop it, she said softly. Kinkajou shook her head. It wasn't your fault, she said. You helped when it mattered. I hope I can help more, Moonwatcher added, by keeping that scroll out of the hands of Marasier and the Queen forever. Kinkajou nodded. I'll take you to the talisman, she said. I'll help you find the scroll. Really? Moonwatcher looked over in shock. You'd trust me? Kinkajou nodded fiercely. You saved us, she said. Our job was to protect the talisman so nobody could find the scroll. But someone did anyway. If your Nightwing patron can destroy it once and for all, I want to help you find it. Moonwatcher stared in awe at the plucky little Rainwing. Thank you, she said finally. I could use all the help I can get. Kinkajou smiled a little smile again. I don't know, she said. You did pretty great back in those caves. Where was the scroll when you last heard of it? Moonwatcher asked curiously. Kinkajou looked out over the horizon. Flat and dark, the desert slowly appearing before them to cover the landscape. I'm not sure where, she said finally. But it's somewhere in the kingdom of sand. And there we have it. The Star Stringers are Girls Moon and Kinkajou. Kinkajou is going to give Moonwatcher her shorter nickname soon, and my goodness, will it be nice not to use her full name every time after that. I'm super proud of how this came together. It flowed really well in the writing stage, and I had fun with it. Just to clarify, yes, Moon wasn't a mind reader originally. In this universe, she has pretty strong prophecy powers instead of mind reading powers. But now she has both, which is how she reads Keebly's mind when they first meet at the end of the last D&D video that I did. Anyway, this is long enough, so stay tuned for part 2, where we work with the Star Stringers to track down Darkstalker's scroll. Thanks for watching, and have a blessed day.